are these people?
I thought I was done with this story. We talked about this. Well, you guys saw the clips last week of me going to the squad campaign event. That's essentially what it was on Wednesday. We talked about it on Friday here, and then I spoke about this a little bit more with Kit on Monday. So I figured I was completely done. No need to do this anymore. But as I said earlier, so Sunday, Sunday night, I was minding my own business. I was on my way to see a friend. I was checking something on the network looking for a video or something. And then my name was highlighted in the search. My name was highlighted with a video from the Majority Report. And I was like, wait, what? Like, why is there the connection to Majority Report? And sure enough, when I checked, they used the video of me asking Ayanna Pressley the question regarding student debt,
Mm,
and they critiqued it.
okay.
We'll get to that. Because I do have some things to say to counter what they were saying.
Right.
But more importantly, so we know about the debt ceiling bill business that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. And, McCarthy and Biden basically came to a deal that is currently going through Congress now. I believe the last I checked, just before we came live, it passed in the Senate. And of course, the usual case of characters went to the Republican side to ensure that it passed. So you can guess who they were. But this was pulled yesterday, and this is a Truthout article by probably a friend by now,
Karen
Carol
Zhang.
Zhang,
Yeah.
Sharon Zhang, where she where she writes, debt limit deal prohibits Biden from extending student loan payment pause again. The bill would implement a sweeping change for student debt at a time of great uncertainty for borrowers. So yeah, we're going to talk about student debt again. Hopefully not for a while. But this is important given the updates. So Sharon continues, the debt ceiling deal struck between President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy throws student debtors under the bus by forcing student loan payments to restart at the end of this summer with recourse for the presidential administration. The bill mandates that the ongoing student loan payment pause, which has been in place since March of 2020, will end on August 30th, forcing people to begin repayments in September or risk default. Further, it bars the Biden administration from issuing another extension of the pause, which has changed people's lives financially as the nation struggles through ongoing economic precarity. Except, as expressed authorized by an act of Congress, the bill stipulates, the Secretary of Education may not use any authority to extend the payment pause. If the deal is passed through Congress and the U.S. avoids a national default, which could be economically disastrous, it would implement a sweeping change at a time of great uncertainty for student debtors. The Supreme Court has yet to make a ruling on Biden's plan to cancel up to $20,000 of student debt for borrowers across the country, meaning that tens of millions of debtors who could have their debt balances reduced or wiped out entirely under the plan could find themselves once again having to pay off the full balance of their loans after years of relief under the pause. The deal is a major blow to debtors and activists who say that the proposal to end the pause is hasty and irresponsible with the Supreme Court ruling in the balance. The Biden administration was gearing up to resume payments because they were going to simultaneously cancel knots of debt, 20 million accounts is zeroed out. Because of COVID's impact, the Biden administration said returning to repayment needed to be coupled with relief, the debt collective pointed out on Twitter on Monday, echoing the Biden administration's own arguments before the Supreme Court earlier this year. The deal then puts the cart before the horse, the group wrote. if SCOTUS rules Biden cannot implement relief, Biden can try again with a different legal authority, and he should. But what if it takes few weeks, months to implement? What if he doesn't try again? Borrowers will have no debt relief, but be expected to make costly payments. The Debt Collective recently uncovered that the legal basis for a Republican state lawsuit against Biden student debt plan is reportedly outright false. However, the Supreme Court appears sympathetic to the Republican state's case anyway, and it's likely to rule to nix the plan.
Right.
The combination of no debt relief and restarting of payments would have negative effects on the economy. According to a Federal Reserve survey released last week, 37% of Americans did not have enough money to cover a $400 emergency expense in 2022, with 35% of Americans saying they were worse off than the previous year, a record high. Restarting payments and interest would only exacerbate these economic problems, with many people saying that they are unprepared to begin repaying loans. This would especially impact lower income and Black and Latinx Americans, as research has continually found that student debt disproportionately affects these groups. Republicans have targeted student debt forgiveness in other ways. Last week, House Republicans, joined by two conservative Democrats, voted to pass legislation that would block Biden's cancellation plan, end the payment pause, and cruelly force borrowers to pay retroactive payments on student debt payments that were suspended under the pause, according to student debt activist groups.
We're fucked.
Yeah. So, read all of that. We know the deal, basically, with all of that. So, all right. So here's the part that does not give me much pleasure. And Reef, I'm very sorry that we ever had to come to this.
Yeah.
We are going to play the majority of hell. I feel compelled to do it since they took my clip without our permission.
The hoes be knowing.
I mean, I'm just kind of surprised that, it got their attention, but I do think it relates to something that I think a lot of you on Twitter saw that Ayanna did that I think indirectly, not to say it helped, but it might have put some fire under Ayanna in terms of what she said to me last week. So we are going to play most of what Majority Reports report on me and this regarding what I asked her, and they're going to critique it. And then we're going to debunk some shit after that. So, if you don't mind, Reef.
Yeah.
Play the clip.
Yep. I'm rolling the bean footage.
And I'm sorry to kill you.
Biden loan forgiveness program, not as robust as it should be, but it is a start. Is at the Supreme Court. Biden's particular plan was premised under the authorization that the Secretary of Education has to forego debt, to put it on moratorium as the Trump administration did, that the Biden administration did, or to relieve it as we see all the time. In this instance, under the auspices of COVID, because it was an emergency. This is a statute that came up in the wake of 9/11. A lot of people argue that they had other authority in which to do it. This, I think, is a representation of the understanding of at least Ayanna Pressley, who came out with Elizabeth Warren calling for $50,000 debt under a different auspices. That is the general power of the Secretary of Education to forgive this debt. And here's how she responded at a Justice Dems organizing event. And I'll say what's fascinating about this is I don't know INN.
Indie News Network.
Indie News Network.
You're going to find out, though, won't you?
They're the ones who recorded this. They put it up as if this made her look like she was trying to avoid the question.
She was. Did you not hear the word salad that we're all about to listen to again? When she knows this.
And
fucking God.
It seemed like they hadn't listened to the entire clip, or I don't know what.
We made the clip.
I made the clip. And I was there.
Me, regardless of how you interpret her saying, like, I shouldn't answer this.
I literally put the subtitles in myself, Sam. Like, bro.
We were told we shouldn't answer questions, which I get was a function of, like, how much time that they needed.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't about time.
So you guys heard this. So actually keep playing it. Play it until I ask the question and pause.
But she answers the question, and she's clearly laying out a strategy, at least that she thinks exists. They go to the Supreme Court with this authorization, and if that doesn't work, they go to the next one. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but that seems to be the strategy. And remember, Congress, in passing the American Rescue Act in February of 2021, said that any loan forgiveness given by the Department of Education would not be considered a taxable benefit, which is important because generally loan forgiveness is a taxable benefit.
But it's not important.
If you owe $50,000 and it's forgiven, you actually pay taxes on that $50,000 because you got it. Mm-hmm. At one point, you got it.
Or not. Or you could not.
And so Congress did anticipate loan forgiveness, which means that they also contemplated the idea that it was legal, that the president had this authority. So remember that when the Supreme Court says Congress didn't explicitly give this authority, they certainly thought they did. Here's Ayanna Pressley.
Congressman, didn't you give a memo to Biden with Senator Warren regarding student debt to tell him to use the Higher Education Act?
Let me just say this, because I want to get.
So, sorry to do this again, but I asked, didn't you and Liz Warren write a memo to Joe Biden asking him to cancel student loan debt using the Higher Education Act? That was basically yes or no, right?
Yep.
She gives this word salad for 2 minutes. If she could have said, yes, I did, but Biden fucked up, and here's my plan from here. Or she could have straight out lied to me and say, no, I didn't. But she knows here I'm telling the truth here. Because then she goes into the idea of like, oh, I can't answer. I'm not allowed to answer any questions. First of all, and I said this on Kit, probably Hakeem basically said to them, don't say shit. That's my guess.
They knew that this debt thing was coming up. Probably then they knew that like that there was no, they knew there wasn't a contingency plan. Like, because Biden's already saying give the money back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the White House official statements, right?
Right. As well as Secretary Cardona,
right,
who's the Department of Ed, and we've reported on this several times. So basically, right here, I caught her, and she knows that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, she could have said yes, and maybe give more of an explanation if she wanted to, but instead she goes off on something really that has no bearing on what I asked her.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Get in trouble if I start taking questions from the floor, okay? But
pause it. I want to make it clear. They were in the middle of a conversation and a guy yelled out. So they had not. You can hear he doesn't have a microphone, and so she's clearly not talking. She's going to get in trouble from the president of the United States.
No one said that, Sam. No one said that that's who she would get in trouble by. Who would she get in trouble by, Sam? Who, the audience is suddenly going to be upset because she's taking too long when they paid $75 a piece?
Well, depending. I paid 75.
Right. Like, I think they got some time. You know?
Right.
Like, I think they're going to be fine. They were more than willing to take questions from pre-selected audience members.
No,
like,
no, I wouldn't even
they had
say
that one person.
No, they didn't even do that. They didn't even do that. I'm pretty sure that the questions that they asked, we have well, at least 90%
Well,
of the
there was
coverage
like
because
people who like there was a poem. There was like,
but there wasn't like people who were asking, like in the audience who were asking questions. It was all controlled.
Right.
You know, it was all controlled. It was the MC, my MC who was asking them questions. So again, we have full cover, or at least 95% of the coverage of the event on our channel. If you want to watch it, it's a little over an hour. If you want to, null yourself to sleep over a lot of it, fine, your choice. It's there. But yeah, they did several things. They call me as some guy. It's funny because in their description they were like INN's
they have you. Right, yeah, exactly.
But they're saying some guy. Number one. Number
they don't
two,
know who INN is, but they know that it's INN, Indie News Network. They were able to figure it out. You can do some cursory, watch one video, Sam. Watch a video. We covered this whole thing last week. Watch that one.
And they're saying that I interrupted her. I sure the fuck did.
Yeah, welcome to what you should be doing. Fuck faces.
I sure the fuck did. As I said, I paid $75. I wasn't going to stand there and just listen to them gaslight me and not get a return on my investment by asking them a question, at least one. So I bet they didn't even know that people had to pay.
Yeah, but they were like,
who are these people?
Who are these people?
Anyway, keep going.
She's clearly saying the organizers, this is not supposed to be question and answer because things will go to crazy. But here she answers it anyways.
Where that fight stands right
no, she doesn't answer it. Don't even. You know better.
Yeah, just move forward to where you don't need to watch.
Expand the courts.
You can move forward to where it's
expand the courts.
It down, and then they're going to come back, and it seems like she's implying that that using the broader authority is at least
You're going to guess what she's implying on, Sam? Okay, go ahead.
Their backup plan.
What's their backup plan?
And so, if that's the case,
what's the case?
That makes some sense. But the legal case in front of the Supreme Court is definitely sound. And
sure, that's why we're all worried about it. And Biden's gonna accept. What are you about to say in 30 seconds?
As far as we know from the oral arguments, they didn't. To the extent that the Supreme Court was skeptical of the president's authority to do this, it didn't seem centered around the question as to whether it was about the emergency provision.
Yes.
Because if they did that, then somebody could come in and challenge the validity of the 9/11 fund.
Well, sure, but they might still do that anyway on the Supreme Court.
I think they're going to reject it. But on
you think they're gonna what?
Oh, bitches!
You think what? You think they're gonna reject it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Keep going.
Glad we're on the same page, Sam.
And what grounds they reject it is important.
Is key. But that means that the Biden administration, they might just do a freaking shadow docket and just say, they might not even give that much of an explanation, right?
I think at this point they have to. This is going to be a full, they've given it a full hearing already. So there's going to be I think a full decision. And we will tell from that decision on what basis. I would imagine it's going to be, a 6-3 or a 5-4 decision, and a couple of the conservative justices will do it on different on different grounds.
And the pressure will have to be on the Biden administration, especially with a Republican House, to then use the Education Department authority, right?
Right. Well, that.
So
I will get. Don't worry. Don't worry. Do
That's the
not
argument
worry.
from the beginning. I think the idea was
That's why they should have done it, because that's probably like a more
Fuck you.
legally
Yep.
sound strategy. But I don't really care.
Go back a few seconds. Go back.
Yep.
Go back a few seconds.
Yep.
Strategy, but I don't really care either. Education Department authority, right?
Right. Well, that's the argument from the beginning. I think the idea was
That's why they should have done it, because that's probably like a more legally sound strategy. But I don't really care either.
My
way.
point.
Stop. So she said
She doesn't
right
care
there.
either way, but yes.
She doesn't care either way, but she said they should have used the Higher Education Act as the stronger case.
So they're saying we're right.
Right.
Okay. Just making
Right.
sure. Just making
Right.
sure.
He won't fucking stop.
Oh god.
Right.
They're the fucking
they-
worst.
So, but you know what though? In their twisted way,
Yeah.
they actually did well, I don't want to call it good, but they might have done a little bit of good in this, because look, we know our audience. We love you guys, but we know not a lot of y'all are watching us, right?
Yeah.
Majority Report has a much bigger audience than us, so
And much
my
more
guess is-
resources and much more availability, and they could have been
Right.
there, and
So
they could have
my
done a
guess
thing that
is-
Anna would ask them to do.
Journalists, ask them the question. Ask them.
Like, you can ask them.
right.
Like
So
my
I
man
would
here
argue-
did.
Right. But I can argue that they've had Ilhan Omar on the show back in the fall. Not to say that they have direct contact with the squad, but I'm pretty sure they could if they had a chance to kind of clarify this with them, if they really wanted to. Not saying they do, but they have the means to, unlike us. Like, I had to pay money in order to get my question asked, and I got a word salad.
Yeah.
So, but all that to say, so they kind of confirmed what I've been saying this whole time, even though they kind of went around a backward way of saying, oh, but the case that they have currently is sound. And even though they kind of said at both sides of their mouth that it doesn't have a chance of passing, but then they alluded to the fact that, oh, Ayanna, if this doesn't work, then they could do this. I'm going to debunk that in a second. Okay.
Yeah, but we've got this lady.
Who are these people?
Yeah, we have this lady because Ayanna said to me that they said that it couldn't be passed, that this forgiveness could be passed through Congress. And so, just to clarify, it's not a they, it's a she.
Yeah.
This witch.
You assuming her
was
gender,
the
Colin?
one. Huh?
Are you assuming her gender?
Whatever.
How dare you?
So this witch said this. So this wasn't a Republican that was saying it cannot. I'm sure there were plenty, but Nancy Pelosi was the one that said that Congress cannot do this
with that big blue D.
I think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress. And I don't even like to call it forgiveness.
You know, she forgets that she's not holding the glass of bourbon. You know,
It's because that implies
like, you know what
a
I'm saying?
transgression.
Like, this is
it's not to be forgiven.
like this should be the old fashioned. Oh, she just threw it.
Those obligations.
just
So
Italian.
the question of
She's just expressing her
who
Italian.
gets forgiven, to use the term of art that is out there, is a debate. Do we use whatever money there is for the broadest base of support of those with more people with even less debt or fewer people with more debt? That's a policy discussion. But the difference between the president can't do it. So that's not even a discussion. Not everybody realizes that, but the president can only postpone, delay, but not forgive.
Texas for fiscal responsibility.
So she said, so Ayanna said they instead of she. And more directly, her former boss.
Yes, Mama Bear herself.
Mama Bear said that this couldn't be done. But, Reef, I told you this.
Yeah.
I have a big receipt for you.
Okay.
And I have a big receipt for
like
the
one
audience.
of those CVS receipts, like one of those like 80-foot long.
It might as well be. It might as well
tree receipt.
It might as well be, because we're going to debunk what Nancy just said. That, well, partially, because she was kind of misleading in what she was saying here. But we're going to put this to bed once and for all. So, once upon a time, back sometime in 2020, Senator Elizabeth Warren wrote a letter or something to the Legal Service Center of Harvard Law School, basically asking them, so this was when Trump was in office, basically asking them if the president can forgive student debt. This is my made-up story, okay? Because at that point, we were in the middle of a pandemic. So this was their response. And it's funny, like, I found this on Twitter earlier this afternoon. I wasn't necessarily looking for this, but then, like, you know, just sometimes how Twitter can just bless you with some nuggets every once in a while, even for the ooze.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is one of them. Okay. So I'm not gonna read the whole thing given the legalese in this, but I'm gonna pick out the most important things. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is the response that Senator Warren got back in September 2020. Dear Senator Warren, you have previously proposed that the President of the United States could direct the Secretary of the United States Department of Education, Secretary, to exercise his or her existing authority to cancel federal student loan debt on a broad or categorical basis. So, again, this is not legalese, but I think really this is saying, really for any reason, is what I'm interpreting this to be. Okay? Mm-hmm. We have consulted with the statutory and regulatory framework governing federal student loan programs administered by the Department of Education, as well as the framework and controlling interpretations of the budgetary structure of these programs. We conclude that such broad or categorical debt cancellation would be a lawful and permissible exercise of the Secretary's authority under existing law. What does that sound like to you, Reef?
That sounds like we can do it. If you just do it.
It sounds like you can do it for really any reason.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Basically.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for an emergency. You can do this whenever.
Look at that, right there in Jamaica Plains. You know?
Right. But there's more. Hold on. This is needs to catch up.
Yeah.
By way of background, the power to create debt is generally understood to include the power to cancel it. This power rests in the first instance with Congress. The Constitution gives to Congress the power to dispose of the property of the United States. U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. This means that Congress alone is able to release or otherwise dispose of the rights of property of the federal government, and thus subordinate officers of the United States are without that power, save only as it has been conferred upon them by an act of Congress or is to be implied from other powers. Royal Indemnity Code versus United States and yeah. So this is so I believe this is where the idea of like only Congress can do it came from, which is what Nancy was saying.
Right.
But she was misleading in the sense that Congress can do it because, as this memo says, it says subordinate officers of the United States are without that power to dispose the rights of property of the federal government, save only as it's been conferred upon them. Meaning, that power has to be given to from Congress to those people in order to do it. Again, this is legalese, and I'm not that smart, but that's my interpretation of it. Does that make sense to you, or do you agree with what I just said?
I think so. I mean, it also thinks it could be through whatever act of Congress they can enact it through. I mean, he could do it through the, any of them.
Right.
Pick one.
Right. So, but there's more.
Right.
There's more to this.
Okay.
So, however, so there was a little bit more to this, but however, as relevant to your proposal,
go ahead.
Congress has granted the secretary a more specific and unrestricted authority to create and to cancel or modify debt owed under federal student loan programs in the Higher Education Act itself.
So
that
literally, that's like literally written.
Yes.
Like it can do this in this.
Yes.
Okay.
That provision empowers the secretary to execute the broad debt cancellation plan you have proposed. In layman's terms, Cardona can do it for whatever reason he chooses. He doesn't have to wait for a pandemic. He can do it tomorrow.
Right.
And in actuality, it sounds like, and again, I'm not a lawyer, it sounds like he doesn't necessarily need the president or Congress to do it. He could do this on his own accord, just because.
Right.
It could be like, if you owe me money, Reef, and you're like paying it off like month after month or something, I could just tell you whenever, dude, you're good. I don't need the rest of your money. You know?
Right.
This is essentially what this is. He could stop it at any time for whatever reason he chooses. It doesn't have to be because we're in an emergency or whatever. He could just up and decide no one needs to pay their student loans anymore. Done.
Right. So
Right?
it's literally written into the Constitution as of right now.
It is written in the Constitution. And again, like, I'm not a lawyer, but that's
Right.
what it sounds like to me. Right?
Right. Which they continue here that your proposal calls for a lawful and permissible use of the authority Congress has conferred on the Secretary of Education, which is anticipated and allowed for in the budgetary and accounting treatment of federal student loan programs. It is literally written that way.
It was written that way according to these lawyers. Now, these are Harvard lawyers, right?
Right.
So I would think that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I would think.
Right? Maybe. They might use ChatGPT. But
right. But you would think. But I'm saying that because if Senator Warren has she went to Harvard and she taught at Harvard. But you would think that the White House doesn't have that same type of access to these lawyers who are able to infer this kind of information. Right?
Yeah.
So, and to add to the mess, we know this because I reported upon this.
And we know that they know this because this is the letter that they put out.
Which is why I asked Ayanna Pressley that question. Didn't you direct Biden to cancel student loan debt via the Higher Education Act? And the short answer, if she gave a damn, would have been, yes, I did. And here's the proof. This
hard
is
would
on
that been?
No, this is on her website.
So why
Her
wouldn't they
website.
have?
So I will read it real quick. So Pressley, Warren, Schumer colleagues, President Biden can and should cancel $50,000 in federal student loan debt immediately. This was written. This memo
Just 50,000? Just 50?
Well, up to
Gotcha.
like again, like I would have said at minimum 50. But that's what Warren was proposing. Up
Right.
to
Schumer, Omar, Maxine
anyway,
Waters.
so Presley, Warren, zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
And Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, along with Omar, Maxine Waters, Amar Adams, Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, he's gone, and Richie Torres. We know Richie. Led their colleagues in reintroducing the bicameral resolution outlining a bold plan for President Biden to tackle the student loan debt crisis by using existing authority under the Higher Education Act to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt for federal student borrowers.
Yeah.
Right? So the short answer to all of this, the word salad that Ayanna gave me would have been yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. But what happened? Biden sat on his hands for a year and a fucking half. Right?
And now
then in August, he announced that he was going to cancel student debt, but using what at Reef?
The COVID one. That one.
Right.
Which
the
is now
Heroes
over.
Act. Right. So
the Jab
and I
Act.
said this right. So I said this on this show. If he wanted to use the Heroes Act, why in the fuck didn't he do it right when he was sworn in?
Because Collin, he's got to wait and try to use it for re-election.
Right. Right. And Ayanna knew that.
And he's going to make you feel the squeeze of it right before then, too. Like he will with Social Security and Medicaid and...
Right. So, two things. Ayanna fucking dodged me in not answering the question. Number two, she knew I was right in what I was asking her. And number three, she knew that Biden didn't do it the right way because she signed the memo. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is,
and Jamal
did that
and Omar.
And Jamal, who was sitting right there.
Right.
All knew. So that happened in August of 2020, last August. This was her in September, the following month after.
Okay. September. So, do you remember the 21st night of September where Ayanna said this nonsense?
Right.
Speaker,
so listen to what she said.
Solidarity with the millions of student loan borrowers across this nation who slept a little easier last night knowing that essential student loan debt relief is on the way. I'm thinking of every person who's pulled me aside in community, dropped their eyes to the floor as they described the financial burden and shame they were carrying crushed by student debt. The teachers, the electricians, the nurses, and indeed even the grandparents, our elders. Some 76 years old on fixed incomes whose benefits were garnished. The coalition that rallied around our calls to cancel student debt is as broad and diverse as this nation because so too are the families personally impacted by this economic justice issue. President Biden, we thank you for taking action. We thank you for listening deeply and responding. With the stroke of a pen, you moved to cancel student debt for millions of borrowers, and this action is going to change and save lives. In my home state of Massachusetts, the Department of Education...
Except he didn't.
Except he didn't.
He didn't do it the way he was instructed to do.
Mhm.
And Ayanna knew that from that time.
But Collin, you got to expand the courts. You got to expand the courts though, Collin.
So this is why I say Democrats are more devious.
Yes.
Because Republicans tell you what the fuck ups that they're going to do. They tell you. And even like back in April, they were like, we're trying to get rid of the student loan debt thing. You know? So they were saying this in April. So it seems to me how funny that, and just looking, and again, you can look at her website, at all the press releases, she mentioned nothing about Biden not doing it the right way. She mentioned nothing regarding, Republicans, sounding the alarm of we're trying to take out the student home loan forgiveness thing.
Yeah.
She said nothing of it until really essentially yesterday.
Right.
What did she do yesterday?
Oh. Do you move it?
Yeah, I'm moving it.
Okay.
There we go. So actually, this is not the one I pulled because Ayanna tweeted this out herself. But she filed an amendment to preserve the student loan debt pause. Because as we read in the article, the plan is like the Democrats could say, no, we want to pause it one more time, before the Supreme Court makes the decision. And basically the Republicans are like, fuck no more pauses. So yeah, there it is. So this is what Ayanna tweeted out today, because she filed for this amendment yesterday, right? Yesterday. Yep. I spoke to her Wednesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here she says, the pause on student loan payments has been life-changing for families across the country. My amendment would strike down provisions from the McCarthy debt ceiling bill that would force payments to resume on September 1st.
Okay.
Why is this some bullshit?
Well, like, because you could just do it.
You could, right. So given what I read,
just pressure Biden to do it.
Right. Given what I just read in the article, in that memo that Elizabeth Warren got, there's really nothing stopping Biden from saying, or really Cardona for basically saying, I'm just going to cancel student debt just because.
Right.
Nothing stopping him. He has, given what these Harvard lawyers said, and we're going to take them at their word, he has the congressional authority to do it.
Right. So you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a fucking problem that you could just fix.
Right. But more importantly, the issue is now, because if they were, because this is the bullshit that Sam and Aaron was saying, but they should have tried to do it the right way.
It doesn't mean it happens.
Right. But then they're like, oh, we assume that if it fails, they're going to do it the right way. Why the fuck didn't you do it the right way the first fucking time?
I know, dude. I know.
Why wouldn't you do it the first fucking time, especially if you knew that it had the best chance?
Yeah.
And again, I would go for the HEROES Act, but again, that would have tied, and especially like toward the end of 2021, we were in the middle of Omicron.
Right.
Right? So that would have been more of a reason to get it out then, the end of 2021, right? But instead, you waited till last summer to make that fucking announcement, basically when we're pretty much in the clear of COVID. And Ayanna didn't say shit to Biden then. She didn't sound the alarm when Republicans was saying, we're trying to kill this thing back last month, 2 months now. And now only because I feel because majority report, it got probably a lot more attention than our clips did, that Ayanna was like, oh shit, I better do something to look like I'm actually doing something because this might cost me, my seat.
Right.
If something happens, and it doesn't go through, that could be my damn job.
Yep.
And you know what? In a sense, I'm glad. In a way, I'm glad. But this is the bare fucking minimum that she was able to do. As she knows,
she might not even get it. She might not even get it.
Well, she's not even going to get it now because the Republicans can rule the House.
Right.
So it's too late.
And then they're going to let it be an election thing. So, yeah, I mean, Collin, look, your words are violence, and you should feel shame for committing this violence.
I feel no shame. I feel I feel no fucking shame at all. And actually, it just makes me a little more, it makes me feel a little bit better because, as I said, one, I didn't want to go. Two, I was scared, to even answer. But I'm glad I did. And I'm glad in particular I asked Ayanna that question because it really just shows how devious
but it
the
responds
Democrats
to
really are.
pressure. It responds to pressure, Collin. It responds to pressure.
Well, you know what? It did. It did. But
Yes.
again, but it's not like in the right way.
Look over here, pressure. Just,
Right. But so yeah, I mean, but shout out kind of
our audience,
to Majority Report.
No shout outs. They don't get shout outs.
No,
if our audience wants to send this to Majority Report to let them cover this nonsense, feel free.
So if you want to, because I know a lot of you are watching and a lot of you like the drama. Hell, we like the drama sometimes too, but this is the right drama that I think that should go out. You can clip this and send it and tag Sam and Emma to it.
Yep.
Because we just debunked, and actually they told them themselves because they debunked their own damn selves. They even admitted
y'all know
they should have done it the right way the first time in not so many words. But then Emma was like, oh, I don't really fucking care what they do. Well, she didn't say fucking, but like, I don't care what they do. No, you don't, because you're not affected.
Yeah. Well,